What is up, YouTube? It's Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. This video is all about Deadpool 2, kind of Deadpool 1. It's basically following up on a bunch of different stories, including Fox and Marvel working together to share some of its characters and what actually happened between Tim Miller and Ryan Reynolds. So let's get right into it. Now I want to start with the sharing of characters between Marvel and Fox. I found this very, very interesting. Basically, the character of Megasonic Nuclear Teenager, or whatever the hell that character's name was, who is an actual character in comics, actually created by one of my favorite creators, one of my favorite writers. Fox needed to clear the change in the character's powers. I guess that in a sense, it's not exactly defamation, but basically the way that a character is represented in the comics, Fox has license to use that character in the capacity in which it is in the comics. Let me just explain to you why this is important from a legal standpoint. If you wanted to put Wolverine in a movie, because you know Wolverine's really, really popular, you know, from the comics and whatnot, but you made Wolverine's power that he had a whole bunch of pimples on his body that eventually pussed out into acids, and he was really a pimple man. But you called him Wolverine to take that branding and that popularity and use it to your advantage. That's defamation. Like, that's basically like a misrepresentation of character, of brand, of personal brand. So that's why those certain things are put into the contract. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but you could probably get pretty litigious with that. Like, if there was something you didn't like about how a character was done, you could probably fight them legally on that. I know for a fact that basically scripts, early cuts, sometimes even dailies from any production that is not Marvel but is using Marvel license, you have to let Marvel look at it. Like, they literally get to look at it. It's part of the deal, so they can check things and do certain things like that. But here's what's really interesting. So while James Gunn was penning the script for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, it came to their attention, and by they I just mean Marvel bigwigs, that Ego the Living Planet is actually a character that is technically owned, movie rights wise, by Fox Studios. I don't really understand why, because as far as I'm remembering, Ego, I think it was in a Jack Kirby comic where he was introduced. I think it was an Avengers book or like some kind of a one-shot. Like, I don't think it was Fantastic Four. I definitely know it wasn't X-Men, but Fox technically owned that. I guess it could have been Fantastic Four, but in either case, basically what had happened was these two issues were being resolved around the same time, and Fox and Marvel were able to come to a deal in which Marvel allowed Fox to change Megasonic Teenage Warhead, I think that's the actual name, that her powers to better fit their vision in Deadpool, and Fox allowed Marvel to use Ego the Living Planet. So interesting that had happened. I think that the lines of communication between Fox and Marvel are more open than they are being open about it. Like, it's like it's got to be this constant thing, and for them to be able to make that deal literally means that, yeah, they are in talks, they're able to negotiate. It's not as closed case as we think it is on the outside looking in. I think a lot of that has to do with they're holding things close to the vest. They don't want to let us know what kind of things they're brewing on, what they're working on, and it's very, very interesting. A lot of what's happening in news these days is people grab stuff and they like make all these sort of assertions, and they come to these conclusions that may not have any basis in fact, but there's just nothing to the contrary out there, right? That's a big thing. If there's nothing to the contrary, then you can kind of grandstand on a point. I do that a lot with the Fox and Marvel deal that I think's happening, and there's just not enough to necessarily say you're wrong, so therefore I kind of find it okay saying, well, I'm probably right. But it causes all sorts of problems. In the case of Tim Miller and Ryan Reynolds, I found this very, very fascinating because apparently Reynolds had just come out, I think it was last night. Dude, no, it was like 2 nights ago. 2 nights ago, the entire nerdy world just exploded with news. I'm literally just reeling still. I don't exactly know what to cover because I'm very, very busy. So this video's, you know, the mashup of those 2 points. But basically the point is this: Reynolds came out and said that he and Tim Miller were not playing nice, and in post-production of Deadpool, they were literally having screaming matches at each other because I think that Reynolds felt so attached to this character and this property that he had been shepherding for 10 years that, and these are his words, there was no way he was going to compromise on the tone of the film. No way. So when it comes out that Tim Miller is being moved off the project or, walked away creative differences, and he cites with Ryan Reynolds, and we all speculate about this because we're like, well, wait a minute, like the band, they were so happy together, things were so awesome, like, and to their credit as professionals, when they were promoting the movie, none of that was said, none of it was brought up. They looked pretty cool together, so kudos to those guys on being super professional. But at the end of the day, they were at each other's throats, from what I understand, when that movie was being finished up. So a little bit, I think it makes a little more sense now. We can all kind of swallow that pill a little easier. Like, I guess from Tim Miller's perspective, he didn't want to be making a movie about Deadpool with a guy who literally thinks he's Deadpool. Like, that's kind of tough, right? Like, it's crazy, but it's part of the magic of that character too. So like, I can't even blame Reynolds for it. They both went to bat for that movie, as I said before in my other video about it. But it brings to light that whole situation, right? That these guys had big problems with each other, and that is why they walked off. It's interesting that Fox is keeping Tim Miller. I mean, he's obviously a super talented guy. And, with everything that's going on with possibly Deadpool 2 and 3, and, Reynolds will be directly involved with that. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how that moves forward. But that's basically all I want to do. It's just a short little video to talk about these news pieces that you might have skipped over. I think it is a huge deal that Fox and Marvel were able to negotiate, especially given I'm pretty sure it was a small time window for them to close that deal. To not, to have Negasonic Teenage Warhead the way they wanted that character to be in Deadpool, and also to be able to have Ego, the Living Planet, in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. These are little olive branches, guys. Like, these are just little, we can work together. It really reminds me of the end of Step Brothers, where Will Ferrell and his brother are hugging, but they can't really hug, and they're kind of elbowing each other, and they're like, Will Ferrell's like, it's okay, and it's just this awkward thing, but they do need to come together. They just don't exactly know how. That's kind of what I see for Marvel and Fox. I actually might use that in the thumbnail for this video, actually, now that I think about it. But let me know in the comment section, guys, did you hear about this? Is there any pieces of information that you found that I did not? What do you think it means, right? What do you think it means that Fox and Marvel were able to work together in this capacity, given the plethora of crazy stuff that is coming out right now? What do you think this means? I guess the question is, do you think at the end of the day that Fox and Marvel are figuring this out? Or do you think that it's just a litigious thing that they just had to get it done? It's for both parties, and then they're out, so to speak. And also, what do you think about the Ryan Reynolds, Tim Miller thing? I mean, now that we know that they were really mad at each other, is basically what I'm saying. I don't want to read too far into the comments, but Reynolds pretty much makes it clear that they were not happy with each other at all. And what do you think about that? Does that give you a little bit more faith that, Deadpool's going to be fine? Because personally it does for me. Because what I didn't want to have happen was oh my God, these guys made this miraculous thing, and then the success fucked it up, right? The success was the thing that ruined it, and now we're going to have to pay as fans in Deadpool 2 and 3, and they're going to be lackluster. But it doesn't appear to be the case. It really appears as though Reynolds held his ground on the vision. A lot of that came out in the final product. And Tim Miller, to his credit, was very professional about it, but does not want to mess around with it again. I'm sure he was attached to the project until he left. So they were probably trying to figure it out, and Reynolds just was probably still holding real strong. Not much you can do in that situation if you're Tim Miller. So what do you think of that situation too? I find it pretty interesting. All right, so let's check that nerd card real quick. The question is about Negasonic Teenage Warhead. What is the name of the creator that created this comic book character? And I gotta tell you, literally one of my favorite writers of all time. Answer the question in the comment section below. Also, guys, please check out the podcast I did with Comic Uno. She is an awesome lady, huge nerd, huge comic book fan, and a great writer as well. We talk about her book, her journey on YouTube, and I'm going to be doing more collaborations with her, so please check that video out. And also, I'm reaching out to all of the people who are needing to get stuff shipped out to them. I've gotten some addresses. I'm going to be doing some shipping either tomorrow or Friday, but there's still a lot of you guys that either you don't know that you won the contest, or you haven't gotten in touch with me. I need your shipping information. So, please check your direct messages. You can get at me on Twitter if, you've gotten at me and I haven't gotten back to you. Get me on Twitter or Facebook or something like that, because I want to get you guys these comic books. They're really, really cool. So that's all I've got for now. I hope you're having an awesome and nerdy day. See ya!